Hi there. I'm Dr. Basha P. Jordan Jr., the pastor and founder of Hope Alive Outreach, and we're here today at the Hope Doctor Speaks. We're glad to have you tuning in with us today, and we have three guests with us today. Our first guest is from Baltimore, and that's Carlos. Hi there, Carlos.
How you doing?
Okay.
Good.
And my co-host is Clay. He's from St. Petersburg, Florida. Hey, Clay, how you doing? All right. And we have Judy. Judy is from Tampa, Florida. How you doing, Judy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. So glad to have you all with us today. For those of you all who are listening to us by way of Facebook Live or our website, which is hopealiveoutreach.org, or if you're listening by way of our YouTube page is Hope Alive Outreach. No matter how you're listening today, we're glad to have you. Our mission is to give hope to persons who suffer from the disease of addiction, primarily drugs and alcohol. And if you like, you can put your questions or comments up on the screen if you're on Facebook or however you want to do it, and we'll try to answer them as quickly and as completely as possible. Also, if you'd like to get more information about how to get into treatment, how to get into detox, or maybe you would like for me to come and do a book signing or to speak at your particular church or your organization, treatment center, wherever it is, you can call me at 443-250-9635. That's 443-250-9635. And you can call me up until 10 o'clock at night. Please don't call me before 8 in the morning, though. All right. I want to make a disclaimer here. Those of us who are speaking this evening about recovery and sobriety, we do not speak for any particular 12-step program. We're not speaking for Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, any of those. We're not speaking for them. We're speaking from our own experiences and our own hopes. And so we do hope that those of you all who, if you have some members of your family or loved ones who suffer from the disease of addiction, call them right now. Share this broadcast. Tell them that the Hope Doctor is on the air. This is the first week in Black History Month, and we want to dedicate this program to all those individuals who have been a part of a 12-step program, those who've been sober, but they have gone on before, passed on, our predecessors. That's what we call them. We want to dedicate our broadcast to them in this Black History Month. What I would like to do is I want to bring our guests on now and have them to just introduce themselves one at a time and just give about 3 to 5 minutes of the history of how they got into recovery, how they got into how they got sober. And so let's start off with our female guest. Let's start off with Judy.
Hi, everyone. My name's Judy, and I live here in Tampa, Florida, although I have been in St. Petersburg for most of the time. I've lived back in Florida. I got sober in my 30s. I was quite young. I can only count about 6 years of really, really alcoholic drinking. I heard a long time ago that women go downhill faster than men, and in my case, that was absolutely true. But I had 2 small children, and I didn't know what was going on. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what. And I never thought that the alcohol was the problem. Finally, I was in and out of psych wards and anywhere, trying to find hope, trying to find an answer. And one day somebody wrote on the back of an envelope, when I was a patient in a mental hospital, wrote on the back of an envelope the number for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't think, I really had no idea that AA was for me. I didn't think anything AA had would help me. And I know we're not talking about AA, but that was my recovery. But I tried everything else. I just felt like I was desperate. And so I called that number on the back of an envelope. And from then on, my life began to change. I did go through a couple of treatment programs, lived in a halfway house for a while, and in all took me about 10 months of organizations and help in all kinds of ways before I actually felt like I was on the road to recovery. And here I am. I will tell you, I have been sober 47 years, and I owe it all to the kind of recovery efforts that we're going to be talking about tonight. So I thank you for letting me be here. My story is a long one. I'm not young. I don't want to tell you the whole thing, but I'm just delighted to be here. Thank you.
Am I supposed to be jumping in, Bosh, or what?
Carlos, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Doc.
Okay, all right. We'd like for you to just come on, just tell a little bit about yourself, 3 to 5 minutes, how you got into recovery.
Sure, I appreciate it. I'm going to say good evening, everybody. My name is Carlos. Last initial is H. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that simply means for me, man, is as I started this process in September of 1993, and I haven't found any reason to return to the lifestyle that got me a seat in the 12-step fellowship that I participate in. I'm 65 years old. I'm a first-time dad at 51. So I have a 14-year-old, which is interesting in and of itself. I came into recovery at the age of 38. I didn't get it the first time. So 89 was my first introduction to trying to get clean. I didn't make the commitment. I didn't follow any of the suggestions that anybody made. And I changed my mind and went back out and picked up where I left off. And it was a couple of almost 3 years before I made it back into recovery. I would just say it's the best thing that's happened to me. I posted on Facebook yesterday that, recovery is not linear. It's not this straight line, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I have truly been blessed for the last 27 and a half years. And I'm glad to be on your show, my friend.
Okay. Glad to have you, Carlos. Our third guest has had some difficulty keying in for the visual, but we do have him on audio. Can you hear me, Ernie? Okay, Ernie. What we're doing right now, what we're doing right now is just introducing our guest and just okay. Yes, I can hear you. Just tell us a little bit about where you've come from, and just 3 to 5 minutes about how you got into recovery.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry for the difficulty. I'm a recovering addict. My name is Ernie. And by God's grace, in this program, you people, I haven't used since July the 1991. Recovering addict. My name is Ernie. By God's grace, in this program, I haven't used since July the 1991. Recovering addict. My name is Ernie. By God's grace, in this program.
Yeah, tell them we got a bad connection. I want to bring on Clay. Now, we had a bad connection with Ernie, so we're gonna have to dispense with that right now. Brother Clay, my co-host, just tell a little bit about yourself, please.
A little bit about me. Hi, my name is Clay, and I'm an addict. I went to a party in 1973, and I didn't come out to 25 years later. In those 25 years, I've lost 3 brothers, 3 sisters, and a mother and a father directly or indirectly to the disease of addiction. In those 25 years, I've been to prison 9 times, Massachusetts, New York, Texas, 4 times in Maryland, and twice down here in Florida. I found the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, not through prison, but through a treatment facility. One of the judges had mercy on me, told me she was going to give me 30 years if I didn't go into treatment. I did 9 times in prison, but I only did once in treatment. Can't do that. So I found a 12-step fellowship, and I found a home there, and I've been able to turn my life around with the grace of a higher power, and the blessings, and acquire 2 master's degrees with a learning disability, and work in the field that allows me to give back to community and to self and to God. Thank you.
Wonderful. And you're also a mental health specialist. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you're humble, but with 2 master's degrees and coming from where you've come from, that's something that's very, very, very noteworthy. I'd like to just share something with our listening audience today. Since this is Black History Month, I want to give you an opportunity to get something free from me, from Hope Alive Outreach, and it's a poem that deals with drugs. It's very innovative. I don't know who the author is, but I believe that it's something that many individuals may want. It's entitled, "My Name is Cocaine." Beware, my friends. My name is Cocaine, Coke for short, or the Rock. I've entered this country without a passport ever since I've been hunted and sought. I'm more valued than diamonds, more treasured than gold. Use me just once and you too will be sold. I'll make a schoolboy forget his books. I'll make a beauty queen neglect her looks. I'll take a renowned speaker and make him a bore. I'll take your mama and make her a whore. I'll make a school teacher forget how to teach. I'll make a preacher not want to preach. All kinds of people have fallen under my wing. Just look around, see the results of my sting. I've got daughters turning on their mothers. I've got sisters robbing their brothers. I've got burglars robbing the Lord's house. I've got husbands pimping their spouse. I'm the king of crime and the prince of destruction. I'll cause the organs of your body to malfunction. I'll cause your babies to be born hooked. I'll turn the most honest of men into despicable crooks. I'll make you rob, steal, and kill. When you're under my power, you have no will. I've destroyed actors, politicians, and sports heroes. I've decreased bank accounts from millions to zero. I'm a bad habit, too tough for the man. I've caused the law to invest in the battering ram. Well, now make up your mind. What will you do? Remember, my friend, it's all up to you. If you decide to jump in my saddle, you better ride well. For on the white horse of cocaine, I'll take you straight to hell. My name is Cocaine. If any of you all would desire to get that poem, you can just email me at info@hopealiveoutreach.org, and I'll send you that poem. Email me at info@hopealiveoutreach.org, and I will send you the poem. This evening, we're going to be discussing the topic, practicing recovery or practicing sobriety at home. And this is where we live. I found out in my years of experience in recovery that the training ground for recovery is at home. And my wife and I have been married for 39 years. And of those 39 years, I used a drink or a drug for 7 years. And she didn't know that I was using until that 7th year. And she has stuck with me. And I think that that's a great testimony. I know many homes that have been destroyed as a direct result of drugs and alcohol. Husbands have left their wives, wives have left their husbands. And so from your own experience now, could you just share with us how you practice at home. Why don't you jump in there, Carlos?
You sure you don't want the lady to go first? No. It's been said in the mutual aid society I participate in that you can tell whether your recovery or it's quality recovery by your ability to take it home. It's real easy to get caught up in the fellowship itself and spend more time sitting in meetings than you do in trying to live life on life's terms. But March of last year, this recovering at home took on a whole new perspective with the advent of COVID-19. Most folks, if they're not sequestered or quarantined in their house, there were 3 or 4 or 5 months when that was true, say from March to like June or July, before people sort of like felt somewhat safe going out. In Baltimore, the 12-step meetings, basically the in-person ones, basically shut down in March. We're starting to see some of them open up right now. But, thank God for the advent of the Zoom platform, because I've gone from maybe attending 3 meetings a week in person, maybe 4, to now I'm probably on a meeting every day, 7 days a week. Another benefit is not only I'm not limited to meetings in Baltimore. We can go to DC, Virginia. I've actually been overseas. I had the pleasure, and I want to congratulate Judy on her 47. I had the pleasure the other night, because I attend the men's rap meetings on Sundays and Wednesdays. I heard a gentleman from California with 45 years. And when he said he got clean in 1975, if you could have been in this room, you would have saw my jaw drop. So I had to use my fingers to count how many years that was. It was like 45 years. And the cool part is, when I talk about my recovery, Basha, and I appreciate you reading the poem, but my training and my upbringing is I'm going to focus 100% on recovery. So I need to acknowledge the fact that yesterday was the 70th anniversary of Jimmy K finding recovery. And that was in 1950, February 2nd, 1950. And he was one of the co-founders of a 12-step fellowship, Narcotics Anonymous, in 1953. And there was an awesome poem. So I'm going to let Judy jump in, because I don't want to hog, but I hope to be able to read this poem about how Jimmy approached this thing called recovery, because to whom much is given, much is required.
Yes, and one of the things that I have experienced, and that is, the more I receive from this program, the more I have to give. I do a dose of hope 5 days a week, and yesterday I said that when I was out there using, if I was with someone who didn't have a drink or drug, I would share it with them, but I wouldn't give it all to them, because I need to have something left for myself. I think you all can understand that. But I also said that it's impossible for me to give everything that I have away. And one of the things about this forum here is that I believe that our higher power will allow us to share some things as a result of listening to someone else. We'll be able to share some things that we may have forgotten. Judy, I know that you're married, and you also have children, and being sober for 47 years, I know that you have had some interesting experiences practicing your sobriety at home. Share a little bit of that. Share a little bit of that with us, please.
I would be happy to. When I came into the 12-step program that I'm a member of, much was said about this disease being a family illness. And that was a big there was a big emphasis put on that. I don't hear it so much today as I did when I first came in. But I've been fortunate enough to have a spouse who also belongs in the 12-step program. It's a program for family members or anybody who has been affected by the behavior of someone who like us. And he has been a part of that. So our home, from the time when I first got into recovery, our daughters were 3 and 6. So they were young girls, and they never really lived in a home where they saw, what's the word I want? Normal drinking. That's normal. I don't know, but sort of drinking by people who could handle it. They never saw that. They either saw a mother who, when they were really young, was really screwed up and drunk most of the time, to a mother in recovery and a father in recovery who were reasonably sane, and certainly did not take any, did not drink alcohol, which or at that point take anything. It was like, it was pretty. I remember going to the doctor and didn't want to take a pill for my blood pressure at that point. But so these two little girls had their problems. One of them had a learning disability that none of the people at school or the counselors that she went to, nobody could really identify why. She just didn't do well in school, and yet she was smart. She's a smart woman today. The other one was very smart, but she started at 14 experimenting a bit with alcohol. And so this whole thing had a funny side. These were two girls that had lived through hell, and all of a sudden were living through this sort of abnormal life too. So it was important in our household, at least, to first of all, for me to stay sober, and for my husband to continue with his recovery as the spouse. But it was also important for us to give these two young girls some reality. So once I felt comfortable being in social situations where other people were drinking, and drinking responsibly, that's the word I want, we included our daughters a lot in entertaining and going out to places where people were entertaining and serving alcohol. We didn't encourage them to drink or to take drugs, but we wanted them to see that this was something that was not bad. For some people, it was okay. They were doing it responsibly.
Judy, if I could just throw something out right now for conversational purposes, do you think, or have you had experiences in your home where you were trying to educate your children so that they wouldn't go down the same path?
Yes. Yes.
And that, I'm throwing that out to everybody, because all of us have children.
Definitely. We talked very openly about what had happened and what was happening currently. We were always a household where our children were encouraged to become part of the conversation. We told them that if they listened and they didn't understand, not to interrupt, but to ask us after the fact, and we would tell them anything they wanted to know. So that was the sort of way in which we wanted these two young ladies to be raised.
Well, another question comes to my mind, and that is, would any of us at this point in time allow our children to use a drink or a drug in our home?
Our daughters drink in my home. I would not suggest them taking other substances, because I don't know those substances, and they don't sound, from what all of you were saying, they don't sound safe to me. But I do think that there are people in our lives who can drink responsibly. You know, it happens every day, and we're all exposed to them. And so both of our daughters today are grown. They're married. One has one grandchild who is our pride and joy, and he's 14, so he doesn't drink. But our daughters both drink responsibly, and when they are in my home or our home, we generally keep some beer hidden away. I don't like to have it in the refrigerator. I really don't like looking at it even now. But we do allow them to drink in our presence. I don't want them to think that it's totally awful, because it's everywhere in society.
Well, it sounds to me like they're not alcoholics.
They are not. They are not. And if I
have a kind of a different approach to that, and I'm laughing right now, but it wasn't funny when it happened. But my son came to visit me last Christmas, and he gave me a real nice big screen TV, and I'm sitting in there watching Netflix or something. So he was in my kitchen behind me, and all of a sudden I heard something go "foof," and I knew that it was a bottle being popped, like a champagne bottle, and I turned around and he had his back to me, and because I don't allow alcohol in my house. And so I said, Basha, I said, you're not getting alcohol back there, are you? And he says, yeah, Dad. And so I didn't say anything for about 4 or 5 minutes. But when I said something, he put the bottle away. But Clay and Carlos, you have children. I mean, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this? This is an open discussion here about practicing our recovery at home.
And that's the case. I'd like to hear from Clay first. We think we've been monopolizing the conversation, and that's what this is supposed to be. So, Brother Clay, you go, and then I'll share where I'm at with that particular topic.
Thank you, Carlos. Well, for me, I had a 23-hour problem, and I found the 12-step rooms and a 1-hour solution. And I came back and embraced the program long enough to where now I have a 23-hour solution, and I come into a 12-step fellowship, and I recognize that I'm still associated with that 1-hour problem. Bringing recovery home, in my active addiction of 25 years, unfortunately, my children were conceived and developed and brought up in the 25 years of my active addiction. So I wasn't present in my children's life. So that is the negative effect that it has had on me and my children. However, being in the rooms, I have developed a relationship with my children. Some of them not so close, and some of them real close. I have my children in Baltimore are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they don't do anything. They just go to the Kingdom Hall, go to work, and support their mom and support their community. I have a son in Kentucky, and he's just like me. He's going through the legal systems and the trials and tribulations of active addiction. I share my experience, strength, and hope with him.
How old is your son?
My son in Kentucky is 27. Okay. And then I have a daughter in South Carolina, and she's like Judy was saying, she has a few drinks. She goes to work, she goes home, she has a few drinks, and that's that. The only thing that I can do is share my experience, what happened to me. As a mental health professional, I know and understand and believe, and this is not in space, this is my belief, that we all have a predisposition for substance use disorder. Okay. And I think that there are certain windows where that genetic code is exposed to that particular substance. And if I use that substance during that time of development, then that switch gets turned on, and that switch doesn't turn off until the light blows on. But I was listening to Carlos, and I just want to say this because when he was talking about the gentleman with 45 years, I remember there's a gentleman, Bob B., and he wrote the book. He wrote his personal story in a Narcotics Anonymous book. I found the only NA meeting. I remember at that time, he was celebrating 50 years. And he happened to be here in St. Petersburg, Florida, with one of his sponsees, and I happened to be over the house. And I had the opportunity, and at that time, I was 50 years old. And I looked at him, I said, you've been clean as long as I've been alive. And he said, yeah. So I asked him, I said, man, how did you do it? And he looked at me, and I thought Nostradamus was getting ready to talk. And he said, don't use and go to meetings. And I was like, wow, okay, that's simple. Don't use and go to meetings.
Yeah. Well, Carlos?
So, I've been in this process 27, almost 28 years. My son is 14, so he has been the true benefactor of my life in recovery. He was raised as a 12-step fellowship baby up until about 3 years ago when he became old enough to stay home or old enough to say, Dad, I don't want to go to those meetings. But, just similar to what Clay was talking, I believe my son is predisposed because both his mother and I have substance abuse or substance use in our backgrounds. One of the things that as far as bringing it home is the way I was raised, which was with a lot of corporal punishment. And so I was able to break that generational cycle. As far as my son, I don't believe in beating and banging on my child. I believe that we can talk. I'm teaching him now that there are consequences for everything that we do.
Yes.
If I had to, where I struggle at, Basha and folks, is with my extended family, my nieces and nephews that are at that age, 25, 26, 27, where they don't believe nothing stinks and they believe they're invincible and they're cooked up on these CDB gummies and the drinking and all of that. And all I do, man, is I let them know my story. I don't try to judge them. I don't try to stop them because nobody could stop me. And I understand that I can't stop them. I can't tell you the number of times that I had a family member that came to me and says, I need help, or I have a friend that needs some help, and can you help them? I do not allow alcohol or other substances in my house, and folks understand that, and so they don't, out of respect for me. And I don't beat anybody that has it in their house. That's a personal choice. But still, no, I don't. I tell you what though, I'm 65, so I started smoking, Judy, when I was like about 13. I just stopped 3 years ago. And when I talk about the disease of addiction, it's not substance specific. I got a story about the drugs now, Clay, but let me tell you about addiction. I was addicted to cigarettes for a long time. And my son used to always tell me, Dad, I wish you would stop. And so I started feeling guilty because, we're at some place and I have to send him 10 paces in front of me or 10 paces behind me because we come out of a restaurant and I just have this nicotine urge that won't quit. So I prayed about that. And one day, man, I didn't buy another pack. I tried some nicotine for a while. I tried the patch for a while. I tried the Chantix for a while, but it wasn't any of that, man. It was almost like this recovery process. You pray, admit that you're powerless, and deal with it one day at a time. So April of 20,000 marked my 3rd year without any nicotine. No gum, no, what's that thing they do? They smoke.
Hookah.
And I'm grateful, man. My clothes feel better. I don't have as many holes in them. I'm not dropping cigarettes in my lap while I'm trying to drive. I'm enjoying a smoke-free life.
Have you put on some weight?
That's none of your business, dude. I'm on it because of COVID, not because of the smoking piece. That
Okay.
COVID thing, man. Woo.
All right. Well, listen, I want to throw something out at you all. Listen to this. And by this being Black History Month, I want us to talk a little bit about the difference in drugs in the Black community and drugs and alcohol in the white community and recovery, in both. Listen to this. In November of last year, in Salem, Oregon, they had a ballot. And they decided to decriminalize hard drugs in small amounts of heroin, methamphetamine, LSD, oxycodone, and other hard drugs. This is an effort for them to focus on health rather than criminalization. They want to focus on treatment and for treatment to be the priority rather than criminalizing drugs, because criminalizing drugs was not working. What do you all think about the legalization of drugs in our community, and how will it affect us in the African American community and also in the white community as far as drug use and sobriety is concerned? Anyone can jump in there.
Well, the laws are on the books. Okay, and the laws have always been on the books. It's the application of the law. Okay, and there's certain target populations that have better access to recovery services than those of other, let's say, zip codes. Okay, I was able to and fortunate enough to do a recovery grant program for 3 years at the Pinellas County Jail, where clients were Marchman acted, and I had the opportunity to get them into treatment free. I would do one of those, magical questions. If you went to sleep and you woke up and everything was the way you wanted it, how would that look? And explain it to me so that I could see it in my mind. And they would, and I'd say, listen, I'm going to give you that if you sign your name right here and go into treatment. And I don't have the data, but I know through observation that we'll just use 1 week. In 1 week, every client I seen was Caucasian with the exception of one African American or one Latino. So the difference, the ratio of who's going to be allowed to have those services, because there's only a certain amount of beds available. There's only a certain amount of dollars available. Okay? So all of that is good, but when you get down there on the front lines, you see where the opportunity is. Now, if there's no disparity in opportunity, then it's a good thing. And that's my take on it.
Okay. All right. Yes, Judy.
I would absolutely agree that there are millions of people predominantly people of color, and obviously predominantly men, but some women too, who are serving prison terms for what are minor by what I would consider my standard, minor drug abuses, and they are serving these terms in prison, and it costs the government, which is us really, it costs us billions of dollars to keep these people in prison. That I would have no issue about decriminalizing drugs if the government said, we are going to put that money, that taxpayer money, into treatment for these people. I think the thing that people always seem to think, I think they think, that a person with an alcohol or drug problem is somehow just scum. You know, they're doing it to themselves and they're no good and I don't want anything to do with them. And what we need to emphasize is that we're sick. We're sick people and we shouldn't be thrown in prison.
Let me just throw a little bit this caveat here, and that is that in Salem, Oregon, the executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance said that, first of all, somehow or another, marijuana there is very popular, and they have a marijuana tax in Oregon, in Salem, Oregon, and the money that they receive from the tax on marijuana sales, the what is it, the ABS, the oil and all that sort of thing. There's a tax on that, and they said that the money that they will be receiving from that marijuana tax will be spent on housing and job assistance for individuals who suffer from the disease of addiction.
As it should be.
I cry bullshit on that. I do. You know, when they have a potential revenue stream and they want to justify it, it's either because we're going to help a disenfranchised population. In Baltimore City, when they wanted legal gambling casinos, it was all about the kids and the schools. We were going to help the schools and we were going to help the kids. And they put that money in their pocket and they ran away. This is an issue that I'm very passionate about, because I think there's a big difference between legalization and decriminalization. Legalization allows somebody to put some money in their pocket. But if you have one group that can get rich off a particular substance, but you have another group that can end up with a prison record and major incarceration for the same issue. So it goes all the way back to the Nixon declared war on drugs back in '68. You know, it goes back to Reagan and Iran-Contra and dumping drugs, cocaine into our communities as a way of destabilizing the African-American or families of color. Talk about the sentencing disparities between rock cocaine and powder cocaine. For years, we had to fight years to get that law thrown out, because if you had X amount of crack cocaine, you were guaranteed that you were going to do some hard time. And then let's not even talk about this declared opioid epidemic. We in communities of color have been dealing with this issue forever. But now, because there's a certain demographic that's being impacted by this, thanks to the Sackler family, okay, who produced this OxyContin, had doctors convince you that it wasn't addictive. They made billions and billions and billions of dollars. They created this opioid epidemic. And now that it's impacting the average family in suburbia, oh, we've got to do something about it. And it needs to be easier, softer, and it needs to be from a humanistic perspective, and it needs to be from a health perspective and not a public safety or criminal justice perspective. But they're struggling with that because it's, you know, you can't have one for one group and one for another group. And so that whole thing between decriminalization and legalization. The Oregon piece, man, what I'm really excited about is that there was a lady that was incarcerated that was one of the, she came out of prison after like 9 to 10 years and started a nonprofit and worked on getting that legalization thing. Now it's going to be phased in over 10 years. So I haven't really seen it, but I mean, it's a step. All right. But I don't play with this thing, man, because, you know, too many of my brothers and sisters are still behind walls for nonviolent offenses, and they're not trying to let them out. And the police departments aren't trying to hear it because the majority of their budgets are driven off of that economy.
You're
So,
right.
You know, I'm very passionate about that one.
do you
Very.
think that so you would vote to decriminalize drugs in America?
Well, not so much decriminalize. Well, yeah, I would say decriminalize it, but we need to have more of a public safety, I mean, a public health approach to this problem. You know, and it's too many people that want to see you locked up and in jail for insignificant amount of drugs in your pocket. I mean, you know, at one time, alcohol itself was illegal, you know?
Yes.
And then it became socially acceptable. And you want to talk about a strong lobby. talk about shutting down a liquor store and see how the alcohol beverage industry comes at you with both feet. All right.
Well,
So
you know, alcohol
huh?
alcohol is the number one consumed drug in America today.
It is,
And
but
and
it's
the
a
only
socially
reason
acceptable one. So you can be drunk and kill somebody and probably not do any time behind bars, or you would have to have multiple incidences where your alcoholism had a negative consequence or impact before you would be expected to pay some kind of cost like incarceration. You know. But now
yeah.
you've got so you medication assisted treatment. So parents are getting take home medication. Sometimes the kids will get in it and they'll drink it, and there's an unfortunate death, and they want to put you away for life.
One of the things that I know that's prevalent in America today, and that is that in the African American community, drugs are a way of life, and also a way. It's a means of employment, a means of getting money to feed the families from a young age. Unemployment is at skyrocketed levels in the African American community, in the minority communities, and so many of our young men and some young women are selling drugs to make ends meet. So I don't know now how does that fare in the white community that you know of, Judy?
Um, being a non-drinker and not involved with any kind of illegal substances, I can't really give you a good answer, but it certainly isn't obvious. I'm sure it goes on to some degree. I have a brother who was somewhat involved in that for a while. I don't think he is anymore, but I don't think it goes on nearly to the degree that it does in the Black community. I lived in Chicago or in the Chicago suburbs for quite a while, and I've been in South Chicago, and I'm sure some of you are maybe familiar with the South Side of Chicago. The police don't even want to go in there. It's completely a Black neighborhood, and the drug dealers have taken it over. The police are afraid to even answer a call in there, from what I understand. So I think if I had to guess, and this is just a guess, but I would certainly say that it's a much bigger problem with people of color. And it doesn't mean it doesn't. There's plenty of white people that are, in trouble too.
Well, have you ever seen, in the Black community, it's not unusual to see a drug line. That is to be driving down the street and you see African Americans lined up buying drugs. But now, Judy, have you ever lived in a community where you've seen that?
Never.
So that's just
I've lived in a variety of types of communities, financially different levels. So it's not like I'm looking at, this from an eye of only one. I mean, my husband and I didn't have very much when we got together. Our lifestyles have changed. We live in different places, but I have never seen that happen. No, I have never seen people in line. All I've seen people in line for recently is a COVID shot, tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, since I've been living down here in Florida and work with the police department, I found out that one of the reasons why it's so difficult for the police to make arrests in the white community is, especially down here, is because we have so many who live in an affluent society, gated communities, and they're having parties and drugs there, but you can't get in that community. Can you jump in there a little bit, Clay? Because mental health also has something to do with all that we're talking about.
Well, most of the people that have a substance abuse problem have a co-occurring disorder. It's more like the seesaw effect, okay? You can take stimulants for a period of time and then crash, and then you need a stimulant to get back up. You're feeling depressed, you're feeling lethargic. You can take an opiate for an extended period of time. So yeah, there's co-occurring components going on with substance abuse and mental health. To speak on your comment, about the parties and the things going on in the communities where there's employment, there's jobs, there's school, there's education, there's opportunity. The crime is not relevant there, so the police presence isn't relevant there. So like my man Carlos was talking about, the police through their funding are going to be where they can get the best work, and the best work is in the African American community. Getting back to the topic at hand, my biggest thing with putting money into these treatment facilities and housing and employment, even though the dollars are there, it's still a target population who gets those services. And I think there needs to be some type of ad hoc committee or some type of community, like Carlos was saying, somebody who is not a politician, somebody who is not a state representative, to take their hands off of those dollars and put it in the community, right? And let the community disperse those dollars. And then I'd be for it.
We have Jesse Owens has written a comment. He says, I work in the field as a drug and alcohol therapist. In my humble opinion, this process is going totally south. You can hold no one accountable today when I can through this process, people held me accountable. I believe in therapeutic tough love with the emphasis on love, because when you love me, you teach me I have to be held accountable. When white folks start to come in treatment at record numbers, this thing changed. When they were holding me accountable and teaching me, they were consequences. Thank you, Jesse.
It's just a case of, man, there is no cookie cutter. There is no one set way. I appreciate what the brother is saying, and it worked for him. But there's been a lot of research that said that there are many pathways to recovery. I was on a meeting last night, Bosh, where they were talking about Excel. And it was a program that was a hospital-based program years ago, where it was a therapeutic community. So you might do an intake and come in there, Clay, and you get off the elevator and there's somebody standing on a milk crate with a diaper on, sucking his thumb, and everybody's calling him everything but a child of God. Or there's a guy standing on a crate and it's a bunch of women walking around him. That was tough love. And a lot, or they give you a toothbrush and tell you they want you to scrub the entire floor with the toothbrush. That was tough love. Some people find recovery through a faith-based community, but I don't want to lose fact that I just feel that it's a tale of two cities, man. Depending on your social, economic, and a lot of cases, your race is how you're treated. I mean, if you're a person of color and you're struggling with substance use disorder, and by God, you find help, it's probably going to be through the publicly funded behavioral health system. And if they put you on methadone, that means you're going to be standing in line waiting to drink your methadone and lift your tongue up and make sure you haven't cheeked it so you can go back out and spit it in a cup. If you get locked up for your problem, if you don't have money to make bail, you might stay in jail for 90 days, 6 months, a year, and your case ends up getting dropped. That doesn't hold true for another group. I can go to my doctor and I've got a substance abuse problem, and my doctor can write a prescription for Suboxone or buprenorphine. I don't have to stand in any lines. I get locked up. My parents are going to get me out of jail. I'll put up my house. So it's a tale of two cities, man. And it has been, and the issue right now is they're trying to approach that with this opioid epidemic. The only thing is their kids are dying from fentanyl overdoses just as much as our kids are dying. They're trying to profitize this thing, but they can't have it both ways. There was a big article in the paper about who should be owning these new marijuana farms and everything. Should it be investors or should it be some other group? Right now, it's just like anything else. There's a lot of gold in their hills, man. And they're trying to figure out how they can get the money, by still applying the same tactics that have been heavy-handed in communities of color. And I'll just say, Bosh, there is no black recovery and white recovery. If it's true, it's recovery. Now, the current climate that we're in has created that. And the reality is, and Judy can probably say, whatever you want to find in the 12-step rooms, you can find, because we are just a microcosm of society. So if you're going in looking to 13th step somebody, that's what you're going to find. If you're looking for this, that's what you're going to find. If you're looking for recovery, that's what you're going to find. And the reality is, we've got some meetings where people of color don't feel comfortable going to, and it's vice versa. But I do know that there are a lot of meetings that try to make everybody that darkens their door feel comfortable. But the reality is, dude, that Judy was saying, it's just some parts of town you don't go in. Reality.
I think the other thing that maybe we haven't talked about is that this is a disease.
Yes.
We are no different than the person with cancer, the person with diabetes, the person with brain tumor, whatever. And until this country and the people who run it and the people who live in it come to the realization that what we have is a disease, and I think, Clay, you said it, we are born with it. I believe it is inherited. It certainly is evident in my family. I think there are something in our head. I think we know so little about the brain and the chemistry and the neurons and the whole mechanism of the brain. It's a field we are just beginning to look at. And we're the sufferers, and all those people, I shouldn't say we, because I'm out of that suffering, thank God. But all those people that we're talking about who are in prison and who are standing on street corners and women selling their bodies for money to buy drugs, all of that is a disease. It's a disease. And we need to be looking at it. And I've been around here 47 years and nobody's ever done a damn thing to change that. We're still looking at it as a
moral deficiency.
Yeah. Hey, real fast. I don't know how many folks are aware that before there was treatment, there was recovery. In other words, there were mutual aid groups before there ever was recovery. Recovery became popular when they began to figure out how you could profit off of that. And it's the same thing with declaring this as a disease. As long as this as a disease, as long as you can get people to buy into their diagnosis, as long as they can continue to identify you as a consumer, a patient, or client, somebody's going to be able to get paid for you. And I think that's part of what the issue is that a lot of people, including treatment programs, are making money off of somebody's disease, like Judy says. I work with people all the time, and I tell them, you cannot buy into your diagnosis because somebody gave you that diagnosis for a specific reason.
Okay, we've come to the close of the end of our meeting. I'm sorry to have to interrupt you, but I want to
round two, dude. Come on.
Okay, all right. But what I want to do is I want to give each of you 1 minute to give our listening audience some hope. There may be somebody who's suffering from the disease of addiction, drugs, or alcohol. Give them some hope. Give them 1 minute. Carlos, I know you have to leave at 7 o'clock. Why don't we start with you?
You know what? I don't care how many times you fail. Get up and keep on trying, because nobody can measure your desire. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't grab this thing called recovery.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, I guess I am just. What I want to say is that I'm so grateful to be in the position I am in. I should have been dead a long time ago. So to all of those who are struggling with recovery, and recovery isn't easy. It really isn't easy. If it was, we'd all do it.
Amen.
But for all of you who are struggling, I guess I just want you to know that we are testament to the fact that it can be done on a long-term basis, and that we live wonderful, wonderful lives.
Yes. Thank you.
And that's the good thing. That's the good thing.
Thank you, Judy. Clay? Give him some hope.
25 years of active addiction, 9 times in prison, 2 master's degrees, man, and 2 jobs and two jobs, 3 positions. One of them is in the Pinellas County Jail. You can turn your life around and you can do this.
Wonderful. Those of you all who are listening, if you want more information, you can give me a call. You can call me the Hope Doctor, 443-250-9635. 443-250-9635. Don't forget, if you'd like to get a copy of My Name is Cocaine, just email me at info@hopealiveoutreach.org. That's info@hopealiveoutreach.org. Go to my website, check us out. And if you feel as though that you want to help us, you can donate there on our website, Hope Alive, www.hopealiveoutreach.org. That's hopealiveoutreach.org. I'm Dr. Jordan. I want to thank you, Carlos. I want to thank you, Clay, and thank you, Judy, for being here with us tonight. It's been a blessing. I hope that I know we gave some hope to some persons. And I'm Dr. Jordan. And remember, no matter what's going on with you today, there is hope for you. I'm the Hope Doctor. Have a great day.
Hope Doctor.
That was fun.